about a bard. Thank you.
Playing with my bottom. Oh, blame not the bird if he fly to the boughs where pleasure lies carelessly smiling at fame. He was born for much more, and in happiest his soul might have burned with a holier flame. The string that now languishes low, so the lyre might have bent a proud bow to the warrior's dart, and the lip which now breathes but the song of desire might have poured the full tide of the patriot's heart. But fade away, thy name loved in Erin shall live in his songs, not in the hour when his heart is most gay, will he lose the remembrance of thee and thy wrongs. The stranger shall hear thy lament on his place, the sigh of thy harp shall be sent for the deep, till thy masters themselves, as they rivet thy chains, shall pause at the song of their captive and weak.
There is much more to Thomas Moore's poetry and music that makes him such an important figure in the development of Irish identity and culture. Whilst listening to his wonderful verse and music this afternoon, we shall also try to weave in the historical and heritage context of his life and times. Therefore, I shall interact briefly with Thomas Moore at opportune moments. Thomas Moore's late 18th century Ireland was characterised by the rule of the majority, by the minority, by the right of conquest. This was commonly accepted in 18th century thinking. The Glorious Revolution, the Declaration of Rights, and the British Constitution wore the colour of liberty in England. However, for the Irish, this was the result of an alien conquest, alien in religion, in language, and in culture. This was felt by Moore and others like him as an intolerable humiliation. His poetry, prose, and music are therefore set within this social and historical context and influenced what you will hear today.
Paid Mila Foilta, 100,000 welcomes, as they say across the water. My name is Tom Moore. Perhaps you've heard of me. Poet, musician, composer, gifted scholar, brilliant satirist, fairly disastrous dramatist, a much-loved oriental fabulist, less successful writer of operas, pioneering historian and daring biographer. I understand my lives of Byron, Sheridan and Lord Edward Fitzgerald are still required reading for modern scholars. I was also a celebrated singer, a sometime rebel, and a sort of accidental tourist. Indeed, I'm said to be one of the best travelled literary men of my age. Politically, I was always a committed liberal, particularly in the cause of Catholic emancipation. My role as husband and father brought me much joy, but also repeated hammer blows of tragedy. For the benefit of those not at our last meeting, I shall briefly relate my early life story. I was born in Dublin on the 28th of May 1779, one of 8 children, of whom only 2 sisters and myself survived. Our father was a Gaelic-speaking grocer who owed his position in life to having married Anastasia Codd, a young lady with a handsome dowry, which enabled my father, who ran a small vintner's shop in a narrow lane off Grafton Street, to move to a grocer's shop at a much grander location in Dublin. It was my lot to be made at a very early age a sort of show child, for my mother had great expectations of her only son, and seized for me every opportunity she herself had missed, encouraging my every effort and cultivating the company of anyone she thought might smooth my path. Mother and I were not only extremely close, but also temperamentally very alike, and I rarely missed writing to her less than twice a week. On show nights in the drawing room above our shop, I would take centre stage, long after my usual bedtime, to recite or sing voguish ditties, and my youth was in every respect a happy one. I started to broaden my horizons at the age of 5, when I began to study some of Shakespeare's speeches, and at 6 won a silver medal in a public examination. As soon as I was old enough, I entered Samuel White's English Grammar School in nearby Grafton Street, literally the route to Trinity College. For 30 years, it had been widely regarded as the finest school in Dublin. Arthur Wellesley, later the Duke of Wellington, had been educated there. Paying the fees represented a serious commitment to my education, and unusually for the time, White taught girls too, but there was no question of my sisters being enrolled.
The Dublin Chronicle reported in 1790, the public examination at Mr. White's school in Grafton Street closed on the 22nd instant, with an uncommon degree of splendour. Master Thomas Moore, a boy not more than 10 years old, distinguished himself in a remarkable manner, and was deservedly the admiration of every auditor.
To remember our school days with gratitude and pleasure is a tribute at once to the zeal and gentleness of our master, which none ever deserved more truly from his pupils than Mr. White. These lines appeared in my biography of another past pupil, Richard Brinsley Sheridan, the playwright who wrote The Rivals and The School for Scandal, yet whom White had pronounced a most impenetrable dunce. I have to confess that I benefited from special treatment. The dunce, Sheridan, had often felt the sting of Mr. White's cane, but I only found Mr. White amusingly vain, as he was given to rewarding pupils with volumes of his own poetry or copies of his engraved portrait. White wrote most of the textbooks used at the school, and the curriculum included a wide range of subjects, including mathematics, accountancy and geography, with time for music, dancing, drawing and fencing. But at the heart of all lessons was English grammar, complemented with White's abiding obsession, elocution. Whatever Dublin accent I may have possessed on entry to White's, I left sounding much like the upper-class English with whom I spent most of my life.
In 1791, the United Irishmen organisation was founded. Its aim was to contribute to what Irishness was at a time of great religious and political unrest at the end of the 18th century. It was also in pursuit of civil, political and religious equality from the Crown of Britain. As part of their ideology, songs and music would begin to play a major part in creating and maintaining a nationalistic view.
I received a fair collection of books as prizes in testimony of my diligence and good behaviour, which are still in my library today. At home, my mother was also supplementing my learning in other fields, such as Italian from a priest from nearby Stephen Street Friary, French from an emigre named La Fosse, and another visitor showed me the basics of the guitar, but I never took to that instrument. I am happy to relate that I was not one of those early achievers who are unable to relate to other children. I was fun-loving and popular and enjoyed roping friends into plays and recitals, and I expect, had I pursued my dream of a stage career, I might have been quite good at it. But on 18th April 1792, King George III gave his royal assent to Sir Hercules Longrish's private bill enabling Catholics to practice law and be called to the bar, and my life took a completely different turn, much to my mother's delight.
The following year, in 1793, an act was passed giving Catholics the right to vote and to hold most civil and military offices, but there was violent anti-Catholic opposition from Protestants at what they saw as betrayal by the British government. This contributed significantly to the growth of religious conflict.
All this time I was composing poetry. Indeed, I cannot recall a time I was not scribbling my scraps of rhyme. The earliest I can remember was a couplet about the Dublin craze for the yo-yo, which was then called the quiz, and yo-yoing was called quizzing. The ladies too, when in the streets or walking the green, went quizzing on to show their shapes and graceful mien. Soon I was publishing my own verse. In 1793, at the age of 14, I sent 2 poems to Anthologia Hibernica, a new Dublin-based monthly miscellany, accompanied by the following note. Sir, if the following attempts of a youthful muse seem worthy of a place in your magazine, by inserting them you will much oblige. A constant reader. And both poems appeared in the October 1793 issue. Not much earlier, Dublin booksellers were lamenting that the city was at the poorest place in the world for subscriptions to books. By contrast, the Anthologia Hibernica represented a new kind of striving in Irish life, an attempt to cultivate and cater for a native-born intelligentsia. As soon as the front gate of Trinity College was cracked ajar to Catholics, I was enrolled. However, I needed a thorough grounding in Latin to pass the entrance exams. My education had been far from conventional, as White disdained all dead languages